Are we ready? I'll call to order the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission meeting of January 9th, 2018. The meeting is being both audio and video recorded. You have the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections or comments? Hearing none, it's adopted. Are there any comments on the draft minutes of December 12th? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. I will entertain a motion to ratify the warrant of December 10th, 2017, and approve the warrant of December 10th, 2017. And approve the warrant of, what did I say?
Oh,
No,
January
you're right,
10th.
but this is, okay, go ahead.
And then approve the warrant of January 10th, 2018.
I'll make that motion.
What we have in front of us is 1220, so is that the same one?
Maybe that was the old agenda? Instead of the one that says updated at the top?
No, it's same date. No, it says the same date on both of them. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
meant last month's agenda probably had 12:10.
Oh,
This agenda should say 12:20.
it doesn't.
It does not.
It says,
I know, but it should.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
all right, so
So-
we'll make that.
Go with
that
12:20,
adjustment.
yeah.
I'll make that motion with the change of the date on the warrant.
warrant to
12:20.
December 20th, 2017,
Yes.
and to approve the warrant of January 10th, 2018. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Pending leases and contracts, Mr. Rafter?
We have a contract for a award of the tug to Aero Specialist for $61,595. That's an aircraft tug. Came in below what we estimated, so that's good news. We also have a contract with Passer Aerospace for 3 years for $79,200, and that is for flight tracking and use in operations as well as noise. And we have a contract amendment to the Jacobs Engineering on-call contract to require electronic as-built as required by Mass DOT. It's a no-fee change order there.
What is the effective date is, that is correct. Okay, thank you, sorry. Is there a motion to approve the two contracts and the contract amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second, and then I had a quick question.
Go ahead.
Is the tug a replacement tug or a new additional tug?
I should know this one. Because it was smaller. we
Additional.
initially- It's
Great, I
additional.
was just curious if we were getting...
Can we get our logo on the side of it?
You laugh, but that's one of my goals, is to get our name on all of our equipment for a number of reasons.
Great.
Good.
All right.
No, that one, I gave you that opening, you see.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. All right. Is there public comment at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to pending matters. Mr. Rafter?
On the general fund repayment to the town, we had a correspondence back from FAA identifying a number of different concerns they had with regard to the eligible time frame. We had a conference call with them today, and we're still waiting to finalize it, but we think we've made some significant progress, and hopefully by next week we'll have something back where we'll be able to finalize that document. The initial response was declining significant amount of it.
But we're still in the position we were when we got the first letter, where they're saying, denying about $650,000 worth of,
As of today, yes.
yeah.
The- Prior to this morning, it was
Much higher.
significantly less, more than that, they were declining, so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Brookfield Asset, Bridgetown LLC.
We're still waiting for legal. The dates are not in alignment. They're backwards, but that should be resolved hopefully by next meeting. And on the crew quarters development, we received estimated costs for a similar project. I met with the town housing coordinator to discuss our next steps and determine the viability of the project, whether it's as a design, build, operate, or if we have to take another alternative path where it's a design, bid, build, and then management contract or something. So we're going to be looking into those alternatives and come back with a recommendation.
Any
Anything else?
questions? T-hangers, is there any?
T-hangers are still in the queue. Priority RFP right now is the restaurant, and I'll get into that in a minute. The grant assurance discussion, town council has been corresponding with the airport council, and they're going to be we're working through the physical and actual issues to fund some projects this year, and both attorneys will sit down to memorialize the process and identify that for future.
And is it fair to say that one of the things that we're potentially looking for is some modification of the MOU that was signed back in
We're
2012?
anticipating that will be the document or the mechanism, modification to that MOU to formalize what the process will be to ensure
And
proper control.
we'll be talking about that further going forward, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Any comments or questions? We are up to the 2019 fiscal year budget, the latest
And
iteration.
The only change from the last meeting to this meeting on the budget is an addition of about $31,000 that the town has identified in additional costs associated with healthcare. Other than that, the budget is the same as last meeting.
I didn't hear you, 41,000 for what? I'm sorry.
$31,000 for health insurance
Okay, thank you.
Increase, is that?
increase, yes.
I have a question on that.
Yes, go ahead.
So are we just subject to, that they basically just tell us
Essentially,
what that
they-
increase is going to
they
be?
give
Do we
us
have
the
any?
amount. Not really, because they manage the entire health insurance program for all employees.
Didn't we, wasn't some action taken last year to attempt to reduce?
There were plan changes made. When we asked the town about that, they indicated that there is a savings, and essentially what they're saying is that the increase is not as great as it could have been. And we're looking into verifying that.
Could we find out or know if, I just want to be sure the airport's being treated fairly, whatever proportional increase that the rest of the town,
Yeah, I believe Jamie looked into that, and the explanation we were given, yes, because of, number of employees, type of employees and things.
if it's proportional, I
Yes,
understand. I just want to be sure.
Yep.
Yeah, would you need to step up to the microphone and identify yourself?
Jamie Sansberry, Nantucket Airport Finance. Is it? So, I don't have all of the details, but when I had spoken to the finance department previously, they hadn't really identified how to budget prior, but now with all of the plan changes, they really had to dig in to figure out, well, how do we budget for this? And we still have to consider all of the retirees that are on our plan and that are going to stay on our plan. So for example, this year, we are going to have 2 retirees. They are going to have to stay on the
Who are
health
added to the pot, so to speak?
Right, they're currently on the health insurance, but we now have to budget for 2 more additional spots to replace them, and they stay on. That was never really being done before. It was just so cushioned prior that we never really had to worry about it. And now this year, they had to revamp how they budget for it, and that's the number that they came in at for this year, even with the design plan changes. That's basically as much detail as I have right at the moment. I can get more
Where- No.
detail if you would like.
I'm sorry,
but-
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm just satisfied to know that we're not just that is being looked into. And
They did do this for the entire, for all departments, and I don't think that we're, being treated unfairly or anything. I think it was just
you.
something that needed to be relooked at. Okay.
So, we're basically talking about a 10% increase, slightly more than 10%. I don't understand was it 31,000 that was added? Yes. So that was added to the 2018 number, right?
It was added to the number that I had.
Submitted, which had been added to the 2018 number already.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just thinking that the two who are new people are probably somewhere around $20,000 in each for the insurance now.
Yeah, depending upon whether it's single or.
Right.
But they budget as if it's going to be constant, as they're both.
Right. But it is about 20,000, or is it more than that now? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I can look into this for you.
Yeah, I'd just be curious, but, don't go out of your way. When the occasion arises, ask a question, please. All right. So what do we need to do now? Do we need to vote on this budget?
Yes, and it will be presented tomorrow night to the Board of Selectmen. So,
I would make a motion to adopt, endorse draft 4 dated 1/4/2018 of the budget as before us,
Fiscal year 19 budget.
FY19.
Is there a second?
Second.
Some further discussion? All in favor of adopting this budget for fiscal year 19?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Good work, Jamie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Can I ask a couple of questions just on this? It seems that our actuals 2017 are a whole lot better than the 2018 forecast budget. In other words, we're estimating far less in the way of fuel sales by 283,000, and our PFC is about almost 200,000 less. Is there a reason for that?
well, the PFCs are because of the declining in plane passengers.
Yeah.
And you'll see that probably in a few line items, Tony, I believe, because again, it's budget versus actual. And as I mentioned before, we've only got we're up to maybe 2.5 years of good solid data that we can use to develop the budget from. So our actuals are performing better because we're managing to the actual as we can build the actual data for a budget that is reliable. If that makes any sense.
I would point out that the actual of transfer from retained earnings or the PFC for fiscal year 2017 was 5 times what it was in the budget for 2018, which is good.
Yeah.
And it's up a little bit for 19, but hopefully we'll make that up in the process.
Yeah, it's a matter of where we're pulling from. I mean, for years, well, I shouldn't say, but in years past, we had no retained earnings. Then we started getting some retained earnings, and we were relying on that. We built the fuel revolver, and now we're, supplementing and transferring some of that money to use into the operating. So it's a bit of a balancing act until we get a lot of hard, good data that we can say this is where it's going to come from and how it's going to be as close to actual as possible.
And we're estimating less in the way of rental income on land, and I thought we were just about ready to lease some land. It would seem to me that we'd be even or better than that on the budget, but
I'm going to ask Jamie to explain that.
So even though we know that there's a lot of potential of having an additional land rent, because we don't have anything signed, we can't include it in the budget as of right now. So, we have to go with what we know, and it looks like it's
Well, common
less.
sense tells us we'll do better than the budget.
Yes,
Right. But
yes.
the DOR requirements, as Jamie said, you can't.
Anticipate.
Yeah, you have
stuff
to have
we don't
either
have.
actuals coming in or a signed agreement or anything else, so.
Yeah. And Tony, I want to point out, the PFC, I know actual 17 looks high. It is skewed because we received that settlement for Island Air in PFCs.
Which we're not going to get next year.
Which we're not going to get,
Yeah,
so
this
that's
year.
why
We're not
it
gonna get
appears
this year.
higher than it actually would have been,
Right.
so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Anything further on the budget? All right, Mr. Rafter, moving forward.
Next, we have the declaration of surplus property that's associated with the restaurant and the concession space. This is required under Chapter 30B so that we can get the RFP advertised and things and get that moving. But this is the first step. We have to do declaration of surplus property. So I guess we need to.
Is there a motion to declare as surplus property the space incorporated by the where the restaurant was and where the concession space was and is?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we're getting to your report. I'm sorry, I skipped
Okay.
over that.
On the project side of the house, the vault replacement, I'll include that with the PA project. I had forwarded Jacobs a number of questions regarding both projects as to why there are significant changes, and I just received back emails today with their explanations on the PA. We received a letter from the contractor claiming that the airport and Jacobs were the ones that were at fault and causing delay. Jacobs has replied to that and provided me with a lot of documentation I have to go back and review. And on the vault, they also answered a number of the questions I asked. There was, and believe it or not, myself, nobody on our staff picked it up, but Dave Mackey picked up an issue. When they submitted the cost estimates, they had two projects in there, a vault and generator, because one of them was going to be a new grant. The backup material for the projects were reversed, so that the vault was in generator, generator was in vault. That should, and I have to review this with Jamie, put us in a decent financial position. My concern was that the liability of the airport on the vault project switched from about 25 to 35,000 up to about 200,000. And that's when I told Jacobs that was unacceptable. With this reversal of the project titles, I have to now look at it. I think we should be in okay shape. On the PA system, though, that may end up in a legal claim. They're still claiming $200,000, but there's a study that was done that Jacobs now, I found out, does not have possession of, and I have to ask that from the contractor. So still reviewing those projects. The geometry issue project, we have a meeting scheduled for January 17th with the FAA and McFarland Johnson to begin the kickoff of that. The GSE storage project is on hold. The restaurant enclosure, working with the finance department, engineering, and McFarland Johnson to award the contracts. They had to get some additional information in. They're drawing up the leases and notifying the low bidder of the award, so that's moving forward. The restaurant flooring, I believe I sent out to the commissioners yesterday. The contractor began removing the floor. There was something discovered that could have been potentially asbestos-containing material. NOAA had the samples taken and sent out yesterday. We received the results back this afternoon. The good news is it came back negative. The test results are negative for asbestos. Unfortunately, the contractor he didn't think we could respond that quickly, and he took on another job, but he will be back resuming work on Saturday in the replacing the floor in the restaurant. Another program that we're working on is, I just labeled it additional capacity. It has to deal with the expanded hold room, the fifth position for a commercial aircraft on the apron, additional podiums and relocation of podiums, and ticket counter reallocation and relocation. The expanded hold room, last week we received a detailed estimate from our engineering firm of $830,000. I politely told them, well, as polite as I could be, I told them that was thoroughly unacceptable and we're not going to pay that amount. I said they missed the ball completely on what their task was. By that afternoon, they came back with a detailed list of what I believe they think, that they are now on the same page as us as to what we're looking for. So we're hoping to have an estimate possibly by this week of what a much better estimate, more in the range that we're looking for. The fifth position for the parking of an aircraft is, we're waiting for Jacobs to identify some of that. They're working on the drawings. The podium additions and relocation, we had put in a capital project for some money for a podium. Our maintenance crew looked at it and said, we can build that. They're almost complete. So they're going to finish that work. Noah's working with our IT consultant to realign all the data cables and put them where they belong. One of the challenges, if you've noticed in the past, when the seasonal airlines come in, we have one airline at this podium, but their airplane's over here, and the other airline at this podium, their airplane's over here, so they crisscross on the ramp. So we're making that much smoother. And the ticket counter reallocation, realignment, each counter is owned by the airport and the airlines put inserts in. We're reshuffling because of market share and the need for JetBlue's additional ticket counter space. So I believe it's scheduled for January 18th right now, tentatively, with the airlines to come in and remove some of the inserts, and maintenance will work with them to shuffle them back and forth, and we have to move some back wall signage and things like that. So all in preparation for next season, which Noah's at a conference today, and he just confirmed that United will be flying jet aircraft here this summer. It's a little bit smaller than the one they flew before, which was a turboprop, but the E-145 will be coming in. The snowblower, the head is on the Kodiak. We're hoping to have it tested, but as I said, no snow, so that's a good thing. On the RFP update, the restaurant RFP, the formatting's almost complete. The actual size has been measured and verified. An estimated value and methodology has been determined, which is on the disposition. And that should be going to legal fairly shortly, but definitely before the end of this week. And I do have a schedule. We're looking at advertising in the Central Register by January 24th, in the INM on the 25th of January and February 1st. Then there's a 30-day period it must be out by, which would bring us to about March 1st or 3rd. That's fairly close to the March meeting for us to be able to accept proposals, review, and turn them around. It may take a little bit longer, so we may request a special meeting sometime in March to award the restaurant. Where the review process,
Is it 30 days from the second publication? Is that what it is, the schedule?
I believe so, yeah.
30 days from the first publication.
Oh,
Okay.
so we could have it,
It could possibly be.
yeah. So, anyway, that's what we're tracking right now. Let's see. Other RFP and bids, we received 2 bids for the Bunker Road parcels, none on Sun Island, and we're in the process of reviewing the Bunker Road ones. Working on a number of other RFPs, RFIs, and IFBs. Airport Gas, we held a meeting with them, and they've requested some minor changes to the lease. Legal's going over that, and we'll be discussing some of that in executive session as well. On the operations side, we have a tenant meeting this week, the 11th, at 10:30, and it will include a discussion on the preparations for the summer, some of the things that I went over earlier. Noah has been coordinating with the airlines on that. Some of the items associated with the recent cold spell, and you may see an article in the paper this week, but we had Thursday night, the precipitation started. Johnny Grandgrade came out, attempted to broom the precipitation. The approach was going to be to keep it as dry as possible. Unfortunately, because of the cold temperatures, it became ice immediately, and essentially what he was doing was polishing the ice. So we had to shut the field down. The airport was shut down at about 7 p.m. Thursday. It reopened about 7:15 a.m. on Friday. We still had ice in certain areas, so we had to report what is a standardized braking action report now, which is a numerical system from 1 to 5, with 1 not being good, 5 being good. So we had to report 1s. There were still some high winds. That morning, we received a call from the state, Drew Mahaley, asking about being able to, what the conditions were. We informed him of that. He said they need to get some folks over for the emergency downtown. I suggested they get a helicopter, and at around 12 noon, a Black Hawk landed, and right behind that, a twin-engine Chieftain landed and reported braking action to be fair. So the airport was open. Some of the flights were not operating, but we were open all day Friday. We also averted some significant damage in our FBO facility. We had a sprinkler head leaking in the second floor restroom of the FBO. Maintenance responded and sealed off the area and heated it. They're looking into larger heaters for that area now too, but replaced the head, no significant damage, so that's a good thing. Family assistance, we continue with that, and we have an exercise scheduled for February 6th. Our full-scale exercise are working on trying to zero in on a date in April, trying to coordinate all the entities involved. There's a lot of things going on between town meeting, the election, there's training for the fire department, so we're zeroing in on a date, and I should have that by the next meeting. Just a reminder, annual town meeting is April 3rd, and I can move on to statistics if there's no other questions.
Yeah, do we
Yes.
pay for the TSA?
Do we pay for
Do we pay
them?
for them? Is that covered by the federal government, or do we pay?
No, it's covered by the federal government. We receive reimbursement for the law enforcement support that's required, and that's what was being discussed in Washington is possibly going away, but no, we don't pay for TSA.
Did you see TSA people uniformed up? Of course, we have no flights that use TSA. You wonder,
No, we do. The Boston flights do.
do the Boston flights?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and they give us a daily report of how many they anticipate too, so.
Okay.
And that's, again, it's catch-22 where the airport's open, they're staffing it. They have to be available if the airline
Right.
elects to fly, so.
All right.
Any other questions? On the statistics, the operations were down 1.53 for the month and 11.4 year-to-date. The good news is the enplanements for November were up 12.12%, so that's 2 months in a row now where we're getting some increase in the enplanements. Still down 5.3 year-to-date. Cape Air saw an increase of 10%, while Nantucket Air saw a decrease of 7%, and Tradewinds and Retrix saw significant increases over last November. Retrix was up 49% again.
Is Tradewinds flying anywhere besides White Plains these days?
Not that I'm aware of, but they have, they provide the White Plains service, but they can fly wherever their customer
Yeah, right.
wants them to, so it's predominantly White Plains, though. And the Boston market, Cape Air saw an increase of 14%, carried an additional 173 people. New Bedford traffic was increased by 25%, or 52 passengers. And the Hyannis Market saw a total increase of 4% or 135 passengers, with Cape Air down 89%, Nantucket Air down 7, and Retrix carrying 892 passengers for and I forgot to calculate that percentage, but an increase there. The Vineyard traffic was up 22%, and Jet A gallons in November were up 89.5. Again, it's a high percentage, but this time of year, it's not a significant number
No,
of
it's still,
gallons.
it's still significant.
Still going the right direction. And up 6.3 for the year. December, they're up 8.9%. So the fact that we're still seeing increases in fuel sales is good through this time of year. Avgas, however, was down 3.86 in November, and year-to-date 17, almost 18%. And in December is down 23.7%. The freight for November is up 61%. That's a big jump over last November. And year-to-date, it's up 7.71%. You can see, Dave, can you go to the next slide? I think it has you'll see FedEx and UPS, significant percentage increases. So I don't know if it's Amazon doing very well or what the situation is there, but also we had some, Retrix is starting to carry some freight as well. And noise complaints, we were down from 4 to 1 in November, or in December rather, and it was 1 VFR offshore corridor complaint.
Have we heard anything more from Cape Air about, they're by far the biggest carrier, and yet they told us they were not going to carry freight anymore if we...
They're not carrying freight. My understanding is they've ceased carrying freight. Retrix is carrying it and the others, so.
Well, it's right here.
Mail.
Or did,
Mail, yeah, that's.
is it all mail?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
On the personnel side of the house, we filled 2 janitorial positions with Clement Johnson, who you may recall used to work in the FBO, and a gentleman by the name of Dennis Reed. We also received formal notice from Mr. Tallman that he plans on retiring in May, and we've begun the process of identifying the process to replace and identify what the job description will be for that position. Also, there's a request for approval of a support letter for me to be part of the American Association of Airport Executives Executive Committee. I was nominated a year or so ago by the Northeast chapter, and the commission approved it, I know, last year, possibly the year before. So I'd just like to request that support again.
Is there a motion to approve signing this letter of nomination?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
One comment, I would ask that if the vote is unanimous, perhaps we insert the word unanimous. The Airport Commission has agreed unanimously
That's fine.
to support.
That's great, yes. You may have to sign the letter, because I'm not going to be around after tonight for 2.5 weeks.
Well, if you want to leave it so you can sign it, that's fine.
Yeah, why don't we just leave it?
Oh, it's
Or it
fine.
could be
I'm
the
just trying to be helpful.
Airport Commission agreed to support.
I guess
Doesn't matter.
Good enough for us.
I'm just, if it's all right with you, I'll just sign it the way it is,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
to avoid having to, it's labeled draft, though, so it has to
Oh, you
be,
have the clean copy.
you have the clean copy.
Okay, very good.
Of course you do.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
All right.
That's fine.
Any other commissioners' comments?
We gonna take a vote?
I beg your pardon?
Were we gonna vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there public comment at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to go in.
What are we going to do? We commissioners' comments?
Oh, I did ask. I thought I
Oh, I'm
asked.
sorry, I didn't hear. I
You
was
missed
looking
it,
at this.
Arthur.
That's all right.
I just had one
We'll
question.
do a quick back step and let you.
Sorry. Which was, I was just, one question with respect to the parking system. I was just wondering how that might be going and making sure that we're going to be on track for the upcoming season.
The final mechanical hookup was completed a few weeks ago. They brought in the lines for video and the connection, the audio and video for, connection with their main office. It was conflicting with the software and then the network or whatever that the HVAC system was on. My understanding is that has hopefully been resolved. We just resolved that. It was, I don't want to get into it, but anyway, that's been resolved. The things that we're working on are finalizing the details of all of the outlying parking lots. Who can park where, what the town employees traveling on business are going to do, what the procedure is. Jamie has coordinated that with the assistant town manager and getting that process in place. The pilots, where they can and cannot park with their decals. We're switching from a hang tag to a decal type system. Those smaller details are what we're working on now. So that's in place. Also working with Republic to supplement the violation process with our personnel. So yes, we should be up and running. I had a conversation with the manager the other day. We should be we're up and running and should be ready to go full force for the season.
Thanks.
How are we doing on revenues?
I'll have to get your report. It's not significant, and again, it's this time of year is tough. If you recall, we were forgiving a lot of violators during the transition period, so it's hard to tell. Plus, we're paying the budget, but we expected that in the first year. We expected a decline, and then it'll slowly build back up. So,
Okay.
but I can get.
I used it the other day and paid the fee just to try it out, and actually worked pretty well. Okay. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to review executive session minutes as enumerated in the agenda for possible release, and under Clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. The chairman has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the Airport Commission. And under Clause 6, to consider the lease value of various leases. The chairman has determined that an open session may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the Airport Commission,
Make that motion.
not to return to public session.
I'll renew the.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have to take a roll call? Sorry. Mr. Buscarin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Blanzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo? And the chair votes aye.
Boom.